Hi everyone, this is the Drupal usability meeting for March 13th, 2018. And we wanted to talk about feedback on what could Drupal implement from other CMS or content editors to improve its admin interface. Christina.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay, so it was posted about 1 month ago, and basically what I was asking was if someone could help with ideas or patterns or something that they had seen in other CMS or other editors that we could implement in Drupal. I gave some examples like WordPress, Contentful, and so on. And there were some feedbacks. Basically, well, they were a bit different from each other, but they gave some really good examples. And I also made a bit of recap of what people actually said on Twitter, because there was some people giving also some ideas on Twitter. So I tried to search for some images to illustrate that ideas. And most of them were you can see some of them here were like small things in the from the UI. For example, one of the first comments, they said, okay, when you have a form, for example, Drupal doesn't give too many options on or it gives really simple options for the field UI here, and comparing it to Contentful, I don't know if it can be seen. They give a lot more information, visual information about what you're going to choose. So it goes like improving forums, but that will be forums probably for the content, the site builder. And after reading some of these inputs, I really think it is great that we had these feedbacks. I'm going to show some of the demos that I have from Contentful or Netlify that I've been trying. But I really think that one step that we should do before start designing anything, or at least taking some decisions, will be to know if we are going to have on the first place the content editor or the site builder. And when I mean content editor, I'm thinking on the final user. And Clara, maybe you have something to say here, because we were also on the BOV in Vienna, and it's super related with your issue also. And I really think that we should stop and think a bit about that, because the other day I saw there was this meeting about the JavaScript and improving UI. And yes, sorry, I haven't said the number for the issue. It is 2944689. So in that meeting, they were showing the new improvements that WordPress is going to have, and they were talking about Gutenberg. The new theme, or I don't know if it's a theme or it's like a project or something, that they're completely changing the interface for the forms. And they said, okay, what should we do? Should we focus on the final user, the person that is going to create and edit the content, or we really should be focusing on the site builder? Because it completely changes the way we decide the first step. I mean, should we focus on a super simple form and then have improvements for site builders, or should we focus on site builders, for example, with the field UI, and then make it nicer for the content editor? So that's the question that I think we should try to answer first to start, before start jumping into designs or anything else. I don't know. What do you think, Clara, about that? Do you have any preference or?
Yeah, I still think that if we can improve the usability for the site builders, it will also then in turn improve the usability for the content editors. Because quite often they're somewhat tied together. And I think it's probably easier to, if we have the admin interface set up well, it's easier to kind of not show certain options to the content editor afterwards. I think that's easier than the other way around of saying we make it super simple and then we try to add additional things in.
Okay.
If you look at something like, I think WordPress has 3 different date types. You can just pick one from, which is super simple. You don't need to do anything, but you also can't add any other date formats. So,
yeah.
So therefore, it would be much easier to say we have this whole thing about lots of date formats. And when we come to a content editor who might need this even, it should be easier to say you don't see the extra options than trying to shoehorn the extra options in somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I agree, but now thinking in a designer perspective, as a designer, I would like to know what should be my focus. I mean, then we can add or we can remove stuff, but in a strategic point of view, who should be more important? Because if we say both, it's like we say, okay, I want the page nice and also the logo bigger.
I think the site builder, because as a site builder, you're also building the site for the content editor.
But who's going to work more time with a website? I think the final user is the person that is going to be, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 years working on that website. When you have finished the website and you have delivered it to the.
So would it make sense to look at the admin pages and say, okay, which ones are the pages that a content editor will later see? And for those ones, we can focus on the content editor.
Yeah.
But we don't have to make everything suitable for a content editor because there's lots of pages they won't be seeing anyway.
Yeah.
Like, so the question is, yeah, for example, a content editor doesn't really need to see how to set up views.
Yeah.
But the content editor needs to be able to, to deal with all the content pages. And then we have, so the layout building is a bit of a question on, does that still falls under content editing that's going to be done on a production site? If so, then yes, then the content editors need to be able to pull up these different fields. But for other pages, we'll probably look at something that is not done on a production site and not done by a content editor.
Okay. It's impossible just to focus on the content editor because Drupal is huge, and I totally agree with we should think on both. But if we have to prioritize, then we should see which one. And here it is. For example, in Contentful, they have these super simple categories here. and they have like the content model. The content model here, the content tab and media, they're separated in most of places. And then they have all the settings that you can have here. So, well, I don't know if a different plan can see more stuff here. But maybe what you were apply it to what you were saying, we could just have separate tabs depending on the role the person has that is visiting the website, and then clearly the forms could be seen differently. I don't know, because for example, where was it? Here, for example, this one, what it has, the good part here is that it has live preview. You can edit here and you see it on the right. And what it has is a really simple form here, but it's as you were saying, it's structured somehow because there are different parts here. And I don't know, maybe we could try to do something really close to that, because it doesn't have as many information as we have right now, but it still has some information, just like where it goes. Yeah, like Contentful, it doesn't have that many form stuff around the input itself. And also something that some people suggested on Twitter is this new balloon for the CKI editor, and it's a really specific thing, but I really think it's also something that can be useful. But anyway, that's the main thing. That my main concern was, should we start thinking on content editors or site builders? I think we should really try to decide, because I think so far Drupal has been focused on developers and site builders mainly. And what at the end, what happens is that a lot of stuff is placed there. So as a result, we have these super huge forums with a lot of descriptions, and I don't know.
I think if we're looking at the content editor, then seeing whether we can change the actual content edit form, I think there's a lot to gain.
Yeah.
Because at the moment, especially when you have fields where you can add like an unlimited number of documents or taxonomy terms in different types with drop-down lists or autocomplete, that form just looks very long and gray. And you quite often don't have a good feeling for where you are. And that's getting even worse if you're using something like paragraphs or have a form with lots of different fields. So I think on the content edit form, there's a lot we can gain for content editors. And that's also the page content editors are mainly seeing.
Yeah. And also I really think it's something that we actually implemented somehow. There are a lot of things that can be added here, like with this sidebar that can be closed and opened and smaller if the editor has less permissions for whatever is here, and I don't know. I think it really can simplify what we have here, and I don't know, totally agree with what you said.
So if we're going to focus on the content edit form, there's already a lot you can do with the form display. One thing I'm not sure whether you can do is add things to that sort of accordion section that to sort of get them out of the way. There are certain things like the publication time and the author information that get shoved over there by default, and I'm not sure how easy it is to add other things to there. So that would be a possible area for improvement. And another thing is I wonder if we want to sort of improve the defaults for how the form display gets set up. Like if someone adds a bunch of taxonomy fields to a content type, could we make it somehow so that by default they're all grouped in one taxonomy area? Or is that something that's actually just too hard with the flexibility that Drupal gives us?
Yeah.
Given that they're now all kind of entity reference of one type or another, it becomes difficult to group them together on that kind of content logic.
Right.
There is the contrib module for field groups that actually allows you to structure the form a bit more. So it still looks very, very technical.
So maybe
it's still up to the site builder to group the fields in a logical order, but that kind of somehow relates to how we assume people are putting the content in, or how it will be displayed on the page later. It's just the way how the grouping is done is just very dry and gray. The best I can describe it.
Something that also was mentioned during the JavaScript meeting was that something that could be done could be something really similar to Gutenberg. Do you have in mind how Gutenberg looks like?
No.
Okay. Okay. So it's more or less that. It's okay. It's like Google Docs. Well, no, not Google Docs, because you have other people editing there. But you see here, you have the title. You can write here, and this was the old one, and here is the new one. So you have a white space where you just add text. It doesn't fit a really structured form that we might need for some kind of contents. But we could have like this as the basic form, and then when we add new fields, we can decide if they look like something on the right, or maybe we could decide if they look something more like that, like a totally different field here. I don't know. And probably we could have, for example, the page template form, where we have this super simple form, and then we have, I don't know, the landing page form when we have something more similar to paragraphs.
Well, when you have something like this, the Gutenberg that you just showed, where do you add any kind of help texts or so?
Well, with Gutenberg.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's here. You have the title here, and you just start writing, just like here. It's now I don't have any WordPress running anywhere, but it's just like inline editing.
So if you want to give the user any guidance, what needs to go into what field? you wouldn't have any place to do that.
I don't know. No, I don't think here we have that.
Mm-hmm.
We could have the tour module, or we can just say anything. I don't know, for example, for the title, we usually don't have any information. Mm-hmm. We may have some information for the body, but if we think on the content editor, what information does the content editor needs to know apart from start writing? And I don't know, maybe just having bold, some kind of different paragraph, maybe bold.
Yeah, less so for the text field, but quite often for additional fields that are on a content form, like related
categories, for example, or
categories. Yeah. How do you, for example, in this case, if I'm supposed to tag an article that I'm writing there, I'll put in entity references.
I guess it will depend on the kind of content. I'm just thinking loud right now. I'm just thinking having just like 2 or 3 templates for giving to people to create their forms, and we have the super simple template where we have the title and the text, the body. Then we have another template that has categories, an image, and I don't know. In this case, they have the categories here, the image here, but I'm not sure that's the right way of doing so. I think if we are going to have more fields, I would go for something more like that.
So on the one hand, we have it would be nice to have a super simple form for very simple, for something that mainly has a title and a body and categories. And on the other hand, we have the extremes that are getting shown with using paragraphs, where you have lots and lots of predefined paragraphs that people can put together so that they don't have to deal with the structure themselves. So we also have the complete other extreme.
Yeah, totally agree. And I don't have the answer for that. I don't know. I think it will be more a thing like just facing it on when we try to design it, or when we try to look for these extreme situations and start working on that. And if we just decide some kind of pattern, having in mind this simpler content editor form, then it can influence on the decisions we make for these huge forms.
I mean, admittedly, we can have 2 different admin themes.
Or admin themes, or
we can have one that is
forms.
We can have one that is really scaled down and slick for those users where people don't need extra help or are not dealing with lots of fields.
Yeah.
One that is actually heavy lifting for choose one of the following 20 paragraphs types kind of content forms.
It actually, I don't know, I'm thinking loud again, but it could be like, I don't know, having some button here, I mean, saying show options or show more information, or if you don't have the role, you just don't see it, but I don't know, something like that. I don't know. I'm not sure if it's a good idea, but it's an option. So I don't know. And another thing that I will highlight from the feedbacks we got is that I would say it's called, I don't remember, just moved from my empty states. Okay, the empty states are something that we are totally failing, because empty states for Drupal is when you land to your just created Drupal, you just go to the homepage and it says you don't have content at the best, or say hello world if you have something, or I don't know, something like that. For example, this one, the first thing you see when you enter, just after installing that site, you have some, you just land on the content section. And in Contentful, for example, you have the homepage. It's like, hello, you're here, you have these things already done, and this is the next one for you. Well, it has another kind of user type, but for at least it's something, it's like this, hello, that is the next step you have to do. And for example, for Drupal, it wouldn't apply only to the first step when you land to Drupal, but it would also apply to a lot of forms or other things. And something that made me think is that if we are usually changing Bartik, why are we landing to the homepage instead of landing into the content admin page? If we are focusing on creating content, or why don't we land on the create a new content type, for example, for site builders, or at least a page where it says you have to start here. Is that your first Drupal site or something like that? And that's all. That's all that I have from this issue for now, apart from small design things like inline feedback in forms and this kind of stuff. But the main points were the main user we should focus on, and empty states. And that's all for me. I don't know if you want me to show you a little bit more Contentful and Netlify, or how is it pronounced? But otherwise, I don't have much more to explain today.
I think the empty state of landing on the front page just after you have installed it, I think that to me that would have less priority. Because, there's only the few times that you land on that page for the first time, not knowing where you're going.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think maybe if we can look at the pages and identify the ones that are relevant for content editors.
Yeah.
And see what of that can be improved. Maybe that scales the idea where to start down a bit.
Sorry, can you say it again?
Yeah, if we can identify pages that are really relevant for content editors.
But, okay.
I mean, instead of looking at the whole admin interface, I'm just saying, okay, for content editors, these are the pages they will be looking at for the next 3 years of their job. So what can we do there to make that easier, more pleasant?
Yeah. I think also it could be super useful to find some examples for super difficult forms, like this one with paragraphs and a lot of fields and so on.
Yeah, I think Betty had a session that she did at Drupal Camp London last week. It was the extreme of the site with the, I think, 20 or 30 paragraph types.
Wow.
So that could make sure that depending on whether the picture had something relevant on the right or left, the text overlying the picture would be on the left or the right and in different colors. And that's probably the extreme to which I've seen paragraphs being used.
Okay, cool. Okay. So that's, well, will I see you this weekend?
Yeah, I'm going to be in Essen, yeah.
Cool. Then, I don't know, I don't have anything else to talk about.
Yeah, good stuff. I think that having more wider feedback would be great. So I will try to make sure that this is tweeted from the usability account. That's important.
Okay. And Clara, about your forum, maybe it could be also useful to tweet it from the...
Yeah. Shall I give a short update on that?
Okay.
Sure.
Because Rachel and me have been going on for a while on the question on how could we restructure the admin interface so it becomes easier later for the content editors to work with it as well. Because now we're mainly struggling with the question that some of the content, for example, like blogs or so, are under structure, or you can't actually get to the text that you send out to the users when they get the kind of welcome message or so. This kind of things that are just very far hidden away, or you need to have more permissions than you actually should have to get to them. So we thought, and then once in a while we have this kind of idea, oh, maybe this page should be moved here or there, maybe permissions should be moved away from people to user accounts. But they're all somewhat kind of isolated, more card sorting exercises. And we had discussed whether it would be possible to say, can we have like 5 or 6 guiding questions so that you know when you build a module where your admin page should go, but also that as a user you might have a guidance on knowing where to expect things. We had developed these questions and then things got really quiet about it again. So I've now 2 weeks ago actually built a page. I can actually share my screen for that. So basically build a web form where you can say, okay, if I pick a page like people's page, this is just a autocomplete that pulls out where we put in all the admin pages, which are about 100 or so in a default Drupal installation. And then you get up to 6 yes or no questions. So does this page list user accounts, or can you create or edit accounts here, which is yes in the case of the people's page, and you're already done. And it will tell you that yes, this should go into the section of users. Other pages you might need to go for about 5, maximum 6 questions, which sorts out that all the content should probably end up in a content section and things like that. And the idea is if we get lots of people to actually fill this in, we would see whether the questions kind of work. Because if the same page randomly is very widely distributed in how these questions are answered, then apparently the questions aren't good enough. But if different people come to the different place or come to the same place where this page should live, then we might have a good structure in our head. That was a bit the idea behind this. So we're looking for more people to actually just go in and pick yet another page where they can, I don't know, deal with display modes or so and say, nope, this one doesn't list user accounts, doesn't have user-generated content. The informational settings on the page are not different between production and development side. Not about installing something. But yes, it's actually about the look and feel of the site. Okay. So this one probably ends up in appearance. So yes, if we could tweet about that, then we would have a bit more information, and then we could take that further to see whether we can use this. That's my.
So people that has to fill that is people that are really knows these pages.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. At the moment, it's people that have an idea which admin pages there are.
Okay.
Putting all these admin pages in, I've also noticed that quite a few of our pages have titles that are not really clear. Like,
yeah, that's right.
There's lots of pages that are simply called manage fields, and you have no idea which fields we're talking about. And a few other ones that are also not, where the title doesn't actually seem to say what they're about once you see them out of the context of the menu structure. So that might be also something we might need to be looking at.
Okay. Okay, so I have to remember some admin pages and go here, type it and
yeah, mm-hmm.
and try it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I made a too long didn't read thing at the top now as well.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Maybe suggesting some of these pages like people or appearance or some of that will make it easier to think on some pages or forums, or for example, because I don't remember the paths or the titles for the pages usually.
Yeah, I thought I could just randomly pull up pages, but then they're really difficult to understand which ones they are.
Yeah, that's right.
But I could also try that. I've learned a lot about web forms doing that.
That makes sense.
Could we go back to the question of improving things for content editors? Because we just talked about the content edit form. So one thing we didn't talk about at all is the outside in initiative, which is a very different approach to that. And then two other things. Besides the content edit form, there are pages that list content, so we could think about the design of those. And then the last thing is navigation. How do you get to the page where you want to be to add a block or add a node or change a taxonomy term? And so far, Drupal thinks mostly in terms of menus, but there have got to be different and perhaps better ways of navigating around the back end of a site to get to where you want to be. Maybe some sort of dashboard, maybe some sort of more visual navigation to the page you need to get to.
I haven't tried the outside in a website more than seeing on videos. So that's a really good point, because I don't have it in mind and we could really use it. So yeah, good point.
Do we have any idea how often people use the quick edit? I mean, the quick edit, of course, only works for stuff that is already there, and it doesn't work, for example, to say, oh, I just want to add another taxonomy term here or so.
Yeah.
But I realized that even so, it's installed on pretty much all the sites I'm building and adding content while I'm building it. It never strikes me as something that I would be using. Do we have any experience with how user-friendly that is, or whether people like using it?
So you mean inline editing or quick?
Oh, yeah, sorry, inline editing, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. we usually don't use it on most of the websites. I mean, or is something super simple or super limited, or we don't really use At least us. I don't know other or people on production sites, but the problem is that you have to take that into account a lot on the front end, and it can break stuff. And you have to make a lot of efforts to make it work properly. But that's only my experience. I don't know what other people does with it. I don't know. That's something that a lot of people mentioned it in Vienna on the board, that it was something that they wanted. And I don't know what's the best and how to integrate stuff. For example, the live editing that was shown here, for example, could solve the situation if we didn't have inline editing. I don't know what could be situation. Well, the thing that I was showing before, this inline editing on Netlify. But I don't know. So next issue, or do you have anything else to talk about, or?
No.
Not on our side.
Cross commands, but they are not a UX issue at the moment.
Yeah, Angie wanted to present some findings on blockers people face when starting with Drupal, but she also said that she may be available later, but we are running out of time with this meeting anyway.
Yeah,
I think that's not going to happen today.
Maybe next week.
Yeah.
Okay.
Makes sense. Cool. So that's it for our meeting then.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.